It was the computer. It was,
How are we doing with you? Okay, Jim, I'm gonna go with the intro. You've just been recording everything. Great.
Oh, yeah.
Edit out all of my mistakes.
It's so
And he's
Now
gonna
we're
take 30 pounds off me. Isn't that great? I love Jim. He's my best friend. Okay, so I'm Renee City. Most of you know me. I'm the program librarian here. On behalf of the Ilsley Public Library, I want to welcome you to the Snapshot event. Some of you may have been former attendees of the first Wednesdays. This is the new regeneration of it post-pandemic. So the idea is that they have a live event every Wednesday, and they travel around the state. So if you happen to be nearby, you can, like you guys have done, attend it in person, and then we have a bunch of people who are watching the live stream event. So that's how the new program works, and we're super happy to be a part of it still. This particular presentation is South Korean cinema, aka K-cinema. What's in a name, with Hyon Joo Yoo. We extend our thanks to our partners at Vermont Humanities, as well as to the generous underwriters who make it all possible for us to offer such rich and robust programming. The sponsor of the entire Snapshot series is the Vermont Department of Libraries and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Tonight, this afternoon, we come together from across the state to listen and learn and to be inspired in community. But before we begin, I have a few brief housekeeping items. First, I want to give a great big thank you to the Friends of Ilsley Public Library for their tireless work to support all of the programming here at IPL. They pay for everything. There is no budget line for programming. So every program that's offered here, from babies up to us, is paid for by the Friends through their book sales. So every time you attend one, whether you buy or donate, you are helping us. Our next Snapshot event, which is going to be hosted at the Rutland Free Library, not too far for us, is the Evolution of Jazz with Ray Vega, who I had the honor of working with during the pandemic online. He's amazing. He's going to be in Rutland Free Library on November 15th at 1 p.m. If you want to do that through the live stream, go to the Vermont Humanities website to register for it so that you get the link. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Hyon Joo Yoo.
Jones Canadian bacon is
She
America's
is an
favorite because it's made with
associate
center cut
professor of
pork
film and
loin.
television
It's
studies at the University of Vermont. Her research and teaching areas include East Asian cinema, Postcolonial Studies, Psychoanalysis, and gender studies. A very interesting woman, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do I need to have a microphone on?
Yes, please.
Yeah, but I'm still one click behind. So just going to, let me just,
one tab short.
yes, locate it, and then I'll be right with you.
I'm gonna reach into your pocket.
Yes.
She didn't know how much fun she was gonna have.
I had no idea. I'm just having a blast. Yeah. Okay, so, and I didn't know that I was not gonna have a, there you go, have a monitor here, so sorry about this. Wait a second. I'm sorry, this is giving me lots of trouble.
You're looking for the trailer.
Yes,
So
trailer.
that was the intro.
I will find the Singing in the Rain trailer.
Trailer,
for
yes,
you.
thank you. Okay, great, thank you so much. So hello. So as you can see, I speak with an accent. I'm from Seoul, South Korea. Let's see.
God has chosen you.
And it's your responsibility as my interlocutor to figure out what I'm trying to say. This is what I always tell my students. However, at the same time, you actually need to be very afraid of me, the stranger who speaks with an accent. Right? By stranger, what I mean is someone who comes to your neighborhood, your country, your society, and coming from completely different cultural and historical lineages. Now, that's what I mean by the stranger. Yeah. So you know the Shakespeare's Tempest. Remember the Tempest? The Caliban character. Really, I mean, it's like probably every high school student in this Caliban quotation, right? So I actually wrote it down because I couldn't remember. So this is what Caliban said to the colonizer who came to his island, enslaved him, and taught him English, right? So this is what he said. You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. So the red flag video for language, for learning me your language, yeah? So the stranger like me, because of a historical context in which the West and the rest, right, came into really complicated and intricate relationship with each other. So I learned the language and I speak it with an accent, right? So where I try to go eventually is that South Korean cinema has its own accent. And so its accents, by accent, what I mean is that South Korea's cinematic accent would be its way of talking about its own trauma. By trauma, what I mean is that the events that essentially fractures and also destabilizes, even utterly disrupts the way you have been, and the way the things have been, the context in which you have become a human subject, right? Okay, I got this, I'm here, right? That certainty of who you are. By the way, I'm using the term subject instead of person or individual, because this is a philosophical term. The subject basically means that we, human beings, emerge as the entity that speaks, right? The language. So we become the entity that speaks language and also understands who we are through that speech, through act of speaking, right? And then the way in which we become that the entity that speaks language and also through that act of speech claim our own identities or the sense of who we are, comprehensive sense of who we are, right? That those contexts are very different from society to societies, right? So in other words, the way in which Korean people have become the human subject who speaks and claim particular identity, and the way in which Americans, right, go through the same process, they are different. So I would say the philosophers or academics like myself would say the process in which we actually get to speak is a very traumatic process because this is why the language. There is a, for example, the thing that we like to eat, apple, right? We never eat just an apple. We eat something that keeps doctors away, right? Apple that has something to do with Eden, right? So these objects, right? They come with this particular meaning endowed on it through the language. So there's this thing that we eat that keeps doctors away, and then this thing itself, that thing, right? It looks like this. How does it look? Pardon my, this looks like this. This thing itself, and they are not the same, right? So there's always going to be this gap here. So this word that we invent to describe this thing and the thing itself, they never meet. So there's a gap, right? So that process we call the traumatic process. Now that is an existential condition that all of us, whether that process is through Korean context or American context, it's universal. So we share universality. And then there's this historical context of trauma, right? Where now that historical context of trauma, there's global dimension and the local dimension. Global dimension would be, I would say, modernity. How do we even define? There are lots of ways we define modernity. But I would say modernity is the process in which we have become assimilated into capitalism. So the process of modernity is, I would say, would probably find its origin in the era of colonialism and imperialism, right? That essentially rendered capitalism as the as the foundational and also informing structure for all of us. Now that is also universal condition, right? So there's that is global universality. And then there's the local context of how that capitalism, the process in which capitalism has become global, and also now we are living in late capitalism, new liberalism, that process, that historical process, how that has played out in each society. Now that is also different. So I say it's just, well, I'll try to unpack it a little more later on. But so South Korean cinema, we can define it in 2 words: globalization and trauma. That's it. So there's the French filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard. Are you familiar with this person? Yeah, he is a French New Wave. He was probably one of the central figures of French New Wave. By that, what I mean is that he was one of those filmmakers who invented ways in which the cinema would actually express existential human condition. In other words, how the human subjects exist. What are the contexts of them perceiving and experiencing that existence, right? So he's one of those people. And he said, without cinema, I would not have known that I have history. So he's already defining cinema, right? Through its capacity, its ability to engage with historical questions. The historical questions are questions about us, questions about human subject, questions about our existential human condition. Yeah. So this is where I'm gonna go. So I'm locating South Korean cinema in this much larger theoretical and conceptual picture, right? Essentially, what drives South Korean cinema forward in terms of aesthetically and also in terms of politically, right? It's that right there where global condition and then a global condition and the local trauma, yeah? The global condition of capitalism and then how that global condition plays itself out in local context, generating historical trauma meaning, so that trauma would, for example, in South Korean context, it's colonialism, right? It was a feudal society, and then it became Japanese colony in 1910, and it got liberated in 1945, and then it entered very brief period of democratic the society, democratic political and also social organization, and then dictatorship, never-ending dictatorship until 1993. Yeah. So the funny story, the Bong Joon-ho, have you read, by the way, the Parasites, the Korean movie Parasite? That was, you're not familiar with Parasite? Yeah. That was the first foreign language film that has ever won Oscar Best Picture, and also won Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival. Yeah. So Bong Joon-ho and I don't know him personally, but we're similar in age. So we went, the university we went to, we were basically about a 4-lane roads away. So so he went to a university that was built by Methodist missionary. I went to university that was built by, Presbyterian missionary, and I went to university that was built by Methodist missionary. Although everybody that I know were atheists. So and that was in the area that called Shincheon. It is a large swath of a college district, and that was famous for student demonstrations, anti-military dictatorship and anti-imperialism student protests. So I'm pretty sure he and I probably were there, smelling the same tear gas and running away from the military police, right, to avoid getting captured and thrown into the jail. I'm pretty sure. I claim that as a connection. So The only filmmaker that the South Korean filmmaker that I will visit is Bong Joon-ho, and I want to show you a little clip from his Parasite. But before we go there, let me just take a little detour, right, to explain the kind of universality that South Korean cinema is able to articulate for us. South Korean cinema, as I say, it's organized around really historically embedded trauma, coming from colonialism and dictatorship, and also essentially South Koreans experience modernity itself as history of trauma, right? So a process in which entire societies are assimilated into global capitalism. For example, the entire peninsula where the South Korea is located, the South Korea is, it's as big as Indiana. It's that size, yeah. So South Korea has been buffer between, in Cold War era, buffer between Western capitalism and also Russia-China bloc. So North Korea is the chess piece, right? That would Russia and China would play for their own national interest, and South Korea is the chess piece that would be played by the Western capitalism, right? So the border between these two countries are the most lethal borders in the world. You would actually get killed by the military, right, if you ever attempt to cross the border, right? So this really, I mean, specifically local trauma. And how does South Korean cinema that is really essentially define itself, pretty much following Godard's own definition of film? Without cinema, we do not know history, right? So they do that, and in doing so, they do that by organizing its form, its film form, because what cinema is basically what it's a formal medium. In other words, you understand what these films are talking about through reading images and paying attention to the sound. This is what I mean by the form, right? So they essentially organize their form as a means through which they can talk about their own local trauma. And in doing so, how do they arrive at something that we recognize as something universal? Universality, right? I just told you that the way in which all becomes speaking subject, that is a universal trauma, right? But there's more ways in which we can understand universality, right? Let's see. For example, Haitian slave revolution. I think it started in 1781, so right after French Revolution, 1789. Now, Haitian slave revolution was the first successful slave revolution in history, in human history, right? And what they did was they claimed that what we are doing is practicing universal ideals that French Revolution was able to articulate for entire humanity. What was that? Freedom, equality, and solidarity, right? Of course, fraternity. I don't like fraternity. I use term solidarity, right? So freedom, equality, solidarity, right? So these slaves claim that these are our ideals. So these ideals have nothing to do with some kind of Eurocentric position. These are the universal ideals, and we are claiming it, right? So they took that outside of the European border. They turned it into something universal, right? That's what I mean by universality, right? So then, basically, cinema as a medium is capable of articulating that for us. Now, that is the argument, and that's basically the starting point of looking at South Korean cinema, especially the films of Bong Joon-ho, like a Parasite, yeah? Let's see, and other ways of looking at universality. What would be the different ways of looking at that? But before we actually go there, let me just go back to the accent part a little bit, right? Accent. So what South Korean cinema is doing is that using they essentially create inflection on what we perceive as a global cinematic form, right? So they essentially introducing something that is more than what we have perceived and accepted as, okay, this is how films are made, right? In other words, the global understanding of the cinema as a medium, right? So I would say what they are doing is, the accent of the South Korean cinema would be,
What is it you want
Yeah.
to show?
I want to show this one. Have you seen this one? Yeah. This is a 16th century painting by Holbein. It's called The Ambassadors. It's in London's National Gallery, if you go there. What do you see? These are two ambassadors, the two dignitaries, right? They're representing pretty powerful European regimes, right? They're together, and you can see what are those, some of the objects that you see there. They are all there to signify enlightenment in Europe, right? So there is this scientific gadgets, scientific apparatuses, these musical apparatuses, and look at that, the globe. So already Europe is connected to global ambition, right? So this is all about enlightenment, where we have arrived. This is enlightenment Europe. And yet, look at this. You see this? Little strange object at the bottom. That's three-dimensional anamorphic skull. And you really cannot tell what it is. You have to kind of walk like this. And then you will see that it is a skull. Yeah? So, of course, there's a really easy explanation of what that is. Actually, I was in the National Gallery in London, and the museum guide was telling people, well, that skull is there to insert the story that these two people who seem to be really, really dignified and civil, they're actually warring nations. So the painter put it there to let people know, on the surface, it looks like this is all unified Europe, but in fact, the war is about to break up, or there's like antagonism going on between two countries. That's a very easy way of reading the skull. But that's not how I and theorists like myself would read a skull. That is the point where the large image of the meaning of the large image fails. That's where it falters. When you see that, you see, what is that? What the hell is that? Yeah, that's basically what it is. And what the hell is that? So, in other words, that little skull, we really cannot neatly interpret and explain away, right? There's something that sticks out, right? Something that sticks out. And you have to wonder, and you have to ask a question, and finally you realize, I guess my own epistemology and my own vocabulary that I have kept so far don't really have language to explain this, right? That's the point. That's the point. So that's the point where actually your position as a subject, as a human subject, right, who has claimed identities through speaking language, because what? I understand my language. I know what I'm saying, right? I convey what I want to say. I convey what I want through my language. I'm in control of my language, right? That's how you become the human subject that with a certainty of your own identity. Right now, when you face that, you have to re-examine that, because now you are facing an object that you really cannot explain away using your language. So that's the point in which you actually put this critical distance between yourself and then all the things that you have been claiming as yours, as a inherent and essential part of who you are, right? I would say South Korean cinema does that, presents the little points where you have to ask questions about yourself, right? Because that fails your own system of knowledge, your own system of knowing, your own system of understanding through looking, right? Because what? We look at things and I can describe what I'm looking at, right? And I know what that means, right? Those all goes to those like the certainty of about yourself as someone who sees, and because I see, therefore I know, right? That's the principle. I look, therefore I know, right? Now that filters, right? That entire meaning of that painting is that, and I say what the experience that this painter, Holbein, is creating for us gets translated to your encounter with South Korean cinema. So you have to accept, you have to understand, you have to accept that, okay, my identity, in other words, my own knowing, my own known selves, right? I can no longer hold on to it, right? So I'll tell you a joke since about identity. So there were these two women in their 80s. They're friends, right? They're driving to lunch. They're driving to lunch. So one friend says, "What did you just do? I cannot believe what you did. You just made a left turn from the right-hand lane and the light was red." And the other friend says, "You're kidding. I thought you're driving." So this joke, jokes actually tell us the way really things are. So yes, so accept that you really cannot claim this coherent and unified position as a human subject based on really well-known, well-comprehensible identities, right? I like to argue that South Korean cinema actually has that kind of effect on the global audience. And I think probably its popularity has probably a lot to do with this, even though unarticulated, even though unknown consciously, but I think there is really probably widely shared desire to re-examine who we are. To really widely shared desire to, okay, I'm going to confront who I am. And if that confrontation results in destruction of who I am, I'm going to take it and I'm going to see where I'm going to go with it, right? I think that's what South Korean films do. And I think that's why they are popular, its popularity. Again, this is not something that on the surface of people's consciousness. This is something that's happening in your unconscious. Yeah, unconscious, there's conscious, there's unconscious. They're right next door to each other. Yeah, so there's barrier that keeps unconscious away because unconscious holds all this traumatic process in which we have become speaking subject, or the process in which we have lost access to the thing itself. Now all we have is just a mediated relationship through the thing itself, through the language. Now this is traumatic, right? And also even what I desire could end up actually destroying the entire earth, all that, right? What my desire for accumulation, my desire for consumption, it could actually contribute to the ending of the entire human community and earth. I know that. But I still want it. It's crazy, but I still want it. All those are in your unconscious, right? So I think South Korean cinema speaks to your unconscious. Challenges you to re-examine your own location right now, where you're right now. Yeah, I think that's why it has been successful, because it speaks to your unconscious desire to actually examine who you are. Have you guys seen Fight Club? This is probably, so there are some generations like, I don't know, the Gen Xers, it's Bible. So have you seen Fight Club? No? You have? Yeah? Some of you have? You haven't seen it? Fight Club? Yeah, it's worth looking at. Now, Fight Club is about a young man, successful corporate employee, right? He faces his unconscious in the name of, his name is Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt. Come on, it's Brad Pitt, right? So Brad Pitt appears to him and says, I want you to hit me. I want you to hit me. I want you to destroy me. So what did this narrator, whose name is, by the way, never revealed, he says, because he's us. He's all of us. He stands in for us. He doesn't need a name, because your name goes in there, your name goes in there, my name goes in there. So what did he do? He says, okay, so the entire film, okay, I'm gonna accept the challenge of that destruction, of the foundation of who I am. I'm gonna accept that, yeah? So the entire movie is basically the process in which people accept that challenge. Okay, I'm gonna see where I'm gonna arrive, right? After that destruction of the foundation of my identity, foundation of my sense of human subject. When that happens, where am I gonna go? Where I'm gonna be? The entire movie is about that. So I recommend it if you haven't seen it, yeah? So I would say that is the challenge that South Korean cinema presents to you, yeah? Okay, so do you have any questions so far? No? Okay, so, yes.
So, as I understand you, you're saying you're going to be talking about one filmmaker,
Yes.
but you're talking generally about South Korean film.
Yes.
And are you saying it's monolithically this way, that all other filmmakers take the same kind of?
Oh, that's an excellent question. That's actually quite excellent question. No, South Korean film industry, it's like it has its own studio system. So it has its own system. So yeah, you're right. I was using South Korean cinema to refer to a particular drive, right, that you recognize in filmmakers like Bong Joon-ho, right? And then there are lots of filmmakers like that. And if you pay attention to South Korean cinema, you will see the kind of drive that I'm describing, right? To drive to convey and express local trauma. And in doing so, they somehow are able to articulate something universal, right? That's beyond this boundary of locality. Yes, I would say it's pretty safe to say that even seemingly, even the films that seems like just a remaking of Westerns, right? Just a remaking of horror movies. Yeah, it's just really just genre films, just the war movies, action movies, horror movies, even musicals. Yes, so seemingly these films are not interested in anything else than delivering genre pleasure of watching genre films. However, if you pay attention to its text, in other words, the way that it's organized through, right, textuality, that's what we call textuality, the way in which it's formally organized using image and sound, using sight and sound. Yes, I say this is probably one of the penetrating commonalities. However, because South Korean cinematic, the film industry has its own studio system, which means that profit trumps everything else. So often these films would try to suppress that desire. Does it make sense? Often these films would really just foreground pleasure of consuming genre films. What are some genre films you like? What are some genre films that you like? Horror, yes, horror, yeah. Yeah. Science, yeah, sci-fi, horror.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, yes. But if you actually look at these genre films, you'd probably say, okay, well, this is fun. You know, it's fun to watch horror over and over again, fun to watch sci-fi over and over again. Why are we into watching these films over and over and over again? Right? Now, that is the question, because the way that these films actually speak to us, it's not just about story. It's not just about plot. It's not just about just characters, but rather all these films, every single film that you watch they speak to us on our unconscious level, right? They speak to us by touching us, where the location of trauma, right? For example, horror films. What are horror films about? It's basically uncertainty of who we are, right? Come on, right? Right. Werewolves, and what else? Vampires, and also suddenly like some monstrous entity appearing from the basement. Yeah.
Michael
From
Myers.
like what?
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers, yes. Something that we really cannot explain. That's called, like, that's it. That's it. Something that really cannot really explain away. Oh, well, of course, it's always easy to just explain away. Yeah, it's just a horror. It's just a silly story. It's just about the young women claiming victory over serial killers. We can do that. But however, if that's only that, why do we watch it over and over and over and over again? Because we want to experience this over and over and over again, right? We are made that way. That's our existential makeup, that we are open to that kind of challenges, right? That is why. So, good question. I wouldn't say it's monolithic, right? Rather, I rather say there's a universal desire, or a desire for universal values. Yeah. I mean, the way in which they express it is very different, right? They do it through comedy. They do it through romantic comedy. But you will also notice that a lot of South Korean films, it's very hard to pin them down following genre categories. It's very hard. For example, Bong Joon-ho's films, the comedic elements is very, very, very conspicuous. Even there is like a murder going on everywhere, destruction going on everywhere, and there is the comedy. Yeah, and also what else? Even westerns, even like a remake of spaghetti westerns that Koreans do. You really cannot just call them as a western because they also able to like import surreptitiously bring in historical trauma in it. So is it a movie about historical trauma, or is it just a movie about just having fun with rewatching Korean version of spaghetti western? Yeah, that's usually how it is. So South Korean films have a pretty interesting relationship to genre filmmaking. Now, genre films come with its own universal language, right? Global language that's immediately recognizable. Now, the Koreans would play with that, and they would find a way to reformulate forms, the generic forms, right? And I would say they do that because cinema has to convey history, which means that cinema has to convey historical trauma. That's just the way it is. And as a native informant, yeah, who knows? I might be lying to you, but I am presenting this as a one of the analytical principles that I like you guys to think about later on. You can always argue against it. You can always like, hey, that doesn't really work. You can always discover that, and then you email me, and then you tell me, right? Now that's the invitation. So, at the same time, this is, we don't wanna look at. I mean, come on, this is too much. People actually have that. We don't wanna be disturbed. We don't wanna confront the kind of strange accent that essentially just destroys my pleasurable enjoyment of all the other. Come on, if without this, how nice would it be? How nice would it be, right? That's the desire. There's that desire. So, however, films will always have that. Cinema is a work of art. It's an art form They will always have this. So it's a question of learning, question of taking up that challenge and actually, okay, I'm gonna see where the skull lies. I'm gonna see where the skull lies. Yeah, yeah. So, and I'm gonna, and what, I mean, so where does it eventually lead to? Okay, fine, I'm gonna take up the challenge, so I'm gonna look for those skulls. Where does it go? So where am I supposed to go with it, right? So as a way to answer, I'll just read something actually very interesting from one of the textbooks that I use for my students. So I'll just read it out aloud to you. So the process that we use to understand cinematic reality, in other words, the reality that you see in the cinema, right? The process that we understand that, right? Those processes are the same process that we use to understand our world. Yeah, have you know what one of the skateboarder, one of my students who is a skateboarder, he told me that when skateboarders are actually doing the skating around, he said they listen, they hear music in their heads, and they see themselves to observe, they basically see themselves, their own movement, they see how they move. This is a cinematic imagination, right? So the way in which you perceive and experience your own existence in reality, that is cinematic. That's just the way it is, right? Since what? When was the cinema invented? Basically, invention of the cinema in 19th century, that parallels the progression of modernity, colonialism, imperialism, and democratization, human rights, French Revolution is before that, but right, all of that. Right? In fact, the ideals of French Revolution also continue despite all of that throughout the modernity. So that process it coincides with the cinematic expression of human subject, the way in which the cinema has been developing the means to explain, right, and articulate what does it mean to be human. Yeah, does it make sense? So what else? So the process of perception and affection that are mobilized by the cinema are not exclusive to it, but instead generalized in culture and society through generalized in culture and society. Does it make sense? So the perception, right? We perceive things, we understand things when we watch cinema, right? And also we also feel things, right? So that process that we experience when we watch cinema, that's not simply just, that doesn't just simply stop there in the theater and you get out of theater, it's no longer relevant. It's not that at all. But rather, you actually, the way that you perceive reality, perceive yourself and feeling who you are, feeling the reality, right? In theater that follows you into the street. That's basically what it means, right? Right? So basically cinematic perception is implicated in production and reproduction of social reality, right? That's what people like me who studied cinema would argue, right? So accept it. That is reality. That is the way really things are. You cannot separate your sense of perception and reality or even structural feelings, right? About your reality in yourself, right? That cannot be separated from what you experience, how the way that you experience all those through the cinema. They are imbricated. That's basically the argument, right? So let me just driving these points even harder. So there's no clear distinction between the cinematic and the world. Yeah, that's it. There's no clear distinction between the cinematic and the world. So my skateboarding students, that exemplifies how one actually perceives and experiences their own movement, physical movements, right? And the physical movement is something that allows us to to be certain about your existence, your material existence, right? That is very cinematic. Yeah, that experience is a cinematic experience. That's what it is. So now we see how important it is, right, to be able to build a film, right, to share the language in which we experience trauma, right? Not just in the local level, right? But more than that, experiencing and considering the trauma in a large global and the universal terms. Are we making sense? Yeah.
Yes.
So we're gonna look at Bong Joon-ho. Let's see. Yes, may I please? Yeah. So those of you, how many have you seen Parasite? Okay, 1, 2. Oh, okay. I recommend it. Parasite. Oh, I'll write it
We
down.
have it here for those of you who borrow DVDs from us.
Yeah, Parasite.
It's the most.
Parasite. Oh no, okay, because this doesn't really work, but Parasite. So this is basically about there's this well-to-do bourgeoisie family, and then there are two competing working class families. People without properties, people without means of production, people without means of producing capital. We also call them proletariat class, yeah. So two competing working class families.
So sorry.
Oh,
I'm just keep working on it. You keep talking.
okay, okay, that works. There we go. I actually see something, yeah. So what they do is, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna,
I pause it.
okay, good.
Tell me when to
Can
go.
we just kill the
Turn
light?
all the lights
Yes. Now you're gonna see this one of those families, but basically two working class families are competing for a chance to be to become legitimate member of capitalism, right? In other words, we want to participate in accumulation. We want to participate in consumption, just like any good capitalist subject would desire. So that's the two families are doing that, and the thing that you're seeing is that one of those families, they all embedded themselves in this rich family as a chauffeur and the tutor and housekeeper, the entire family. Of course, I mean, there was under the root that they are using the roots that we are not family. The employers do not know that they are all family, part of the same family members. So this is one night when there's a torrential rain is pouring outside. So I just want you guys to just pay attention to the image. Yes, may I? Would you, Renee? Yeah. This is the father of the family. And those are two children who are working as tutors for the family. And the mother of the family is left behind as a housekeeper. And 아까 어떻게 됐어?
지하에 사람들.
뭐 꽁꽁 묶어놨지 뭐 다.
어떻게 할 거야? 어? 이제 어떻게 할 거야? 계획이 뭐냐고.
근데 아까부터 드는 생각인데 민혁이라면 이 상황에서 어떻게 했을까?
민혁 오빠한테 절대 이러는 게 안 되겠지!
얘들아, 우리가 지금 그 집에서 무사히 나왔지, 그치? 그리고 우리 식구들 말고 아무도 모르지 무슨 일이 있었는지. 응? 그러니까 아무 일도 없었던 거야, 알겠어? 아빠가 생각이 계획이 다 있으니까 니들 그냥 잊어버리라고, 오케이? 응? 자, 집으로 가자. 자, 가서 씻자. 응? 뭐야 거기서? 빨리 와 빨리.
아, 이게 뭐야?
여기 똥물이야 똥물. 똥물이. 여기 똥물인데? 야! 이거 좀 놔줘. 야, 이게 뭐야? 기호야. 야, 기호야. 창문 닫아, 창문. 여기 올랐지?
There's a second family who was actually taking a residence in the basement of this rich employer. So you can continue. We'll just tell them
가만히 있어봐. 아씨, 어지럽네.
기장아, 조심해. 예.
여보, 나 확실히 내진 땅인가 봐. 당신이 안 보여. 여보, 충성이 언니가, 아이, 진짜 좋은 분인데, 나를 발로 확 밀었어. 나 따라해봐. 충성.
야, 기호야. 뭐하냐 거기서? 어?
Yes. Thank you so much, Renee. Yeah. Okay, I know that those of you who haven't seen it probably couldn't quite grasp what is going on, but I just wanted to choose this scene because of the movements of people. As I was telling you, there are two groups, two families, two working class families competing for the resources, right? In other words, the rich household. So this guy, no one knew that he was actually has been living there for several years, right? He has nowhere to go. He he is no longer a productive member of capitalist society. So that's where he exists. And his wife used to be this entire family's household, the housekeeper. And then the second family moved in, and they were all this family were initially taking up the residents there were thrown out, right? To make it really, really simple. So, but I want us to pay attention to that movement. What was the movement that you noticed? Downward, right? It continual downward movement, and they are in the basement. Yeah, so basement and downward movement. Yeah, so that kind of visualization of human existence, I think that it, first of all, it registers on us viscerally. Yeah, viscerally. We don't need to really talk about it in a long-winded way. We don't have to explain it at all, right? And if you really think in terms of the narrative, where if we can just simply think about this film in terms of narrative, that there are these parasitic families trying to compete for the chance to become proper capitalist subjects. That's the story. And yet both of them failed because they would kill each other for the chance, rather than form some kind of class unity and organize a revolution against the ruling class. Instead they compete with each other, and they especially and essentially destroy each other. That is the storyline. But that kind of 10-minute worth of, that's about 10 minutes, about 9 minutes of a visualization of people's movements, right? Now that's where this force, the force of cinematic form, right, comes out. That's how cinema speaks to us. Yeah, are we making sense so far? Yeah. So the downward movement to basically to an impossible place of existence, impossible place, right? The entire home is flooded, and actually there are such neighborhoods in South Korea, and people do actually get drowned in their own home in the summer, right? There's behind this glorious BTS, K-pop, all of that. That is the real. That is the real of Korean capitalism. It's just like we see the real of Chinese capitalism in, for example, encampments for Tibetans and Uyghurs, yeah, etc. So cinema would reveal that skull, right? That skull that asks you to ask questions about yourself, right? Okay, I am encountering the human existence that is beyond my epistemological and also perceptive boundaries. So the cinema is inviting me to reformulate who I am.
It just occurred to me, in this, like how profound it is that the basement that they're hiding in is a secret basement that the affluent family doesn't even know
Yes,
exists.
good point. Yes, they do not even know.
Hidden.
Excellent. Yes, thank you.
Other things.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. These rich families do not even know there's a whole world going on in their basement. Yeah. Yes.
It also descends from rain,
Yeah.
clean water.
Yeah.
And as they go down, they get farther and farther into the
Sewage.
sewage.
Yes.
And
Excellent,
and torture. People are tied up and
Yeah.
so on. It's almost like they are descending into hell.
Yeah, excellent. Yes, yes, you're right. That's amazing reading of this film. Yes, that's the point. Yes. So all that way of articulating your understanding, I think that comes from basically the shock of the image. I would even say it's a poetic shock. Poetic means you really cannot really write it down as you write a sociology paper, right? It's a poetic shock, which means that it essentially puts you in a place where you have to re-examine your linguistic capacity itself, right? That's what I mean by poetic shock. Yeah. So cinema is able to do that. Yeah. So that's why there's this Russian, or around the time of Russian Revolution, Sergei Eisenstein, he was a filmmaker. He was one of those early innovators of cinematic medium. He actually invented what we call montage, the way in which we put the images together. And his goal, of course, he was a revolutionary at the same time. So what he did was he would show audience the images. He would edit images in such a way that it would hit you on your gut. And you sit there and you're watching this image of injustice unfolding. And what you do, just so you're hit on your gut by the force of the image. So what do? You get out of theater and you participate in revolution, right? So from the theater to the street, the cinema is a medium that can actually make that happen. So I would say in South Korea, that kind of filmmaking, that essentially shows us the real, right? The way really, really things are. I'll tell you what the real is. One of my students shared this story in class. He said that he ordered a brand new iPhone, right? It's mail ordered. So it has arrived. He was excited. He was unboxing it. And here it is, this beautiful object of my desire arrived here. And he opened the SIM card case and he saw fingerprints. So capitalism works in such a way that it will hide exploitation of human labor, or exploitation of resources, right? The unjust system. And in doing so, it hides that there are people, the people in the factory, there are people collecting coltan in Africa, there are child laborers, child miners. The human disappears. So what my student experienced was, wow, there's a human. So the commodity just doesn't appear to us. It's clean, pristine, in beautiful shape. I mean, come on, brand new iPhone. Can you imagine this shiny little beautiful object? Right, so that was the experience. That was his experience. He was encounter with that skull. That was his encounter with the real, the way really, really, really things are, right? So I would say cinema has that power, right? Forcing us to encounter that skull, the real, yeah? And it does so through the image, through its form, right? Yeah. I would say that's just about what I would like to say for now. And then of course, I'd like to have a conversation with you if there are any questions, if there's anything. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I already told you that the process in which we all of us, whether you're a Korean, whether you're an American, or Indian, all of us become human subject itself is a traumatic process, right? That already prepares us. That prepares us to, come on, bring it on. Bring it on. I can face more trauma. That prepares us. And in fact, our existence thrives through that, bring it on, right? We are inherently traumatic subject anyway, traumatized subject anyway. So we are familiar with that. So we are open to encountering more contexts of trauma, more historically, socially produced context of trauma, right? That, yeah, I like to emphasize that. Yeah, and film is speaking to that. Filmmakers like Bong Joon-ho say, "Hey, I know you guys are capable. So here it is. Yeah.
It's occurring to me that like as an elementary school teacher, there's I followed like a Piaget theory, and one of the key points, pedagogical points, is what we call disequilibration, where you create a discrepant moment, and for the child and their process of reconciling that discrepancy is itself the learning process. So it's an inherently traumatizing process.
Okay. Yes.
It seems resonant.
Thank you. That's well spoken. Thank you. And Renee, I just want to open with one more image. Can I go back to the screen? Yeah, that's the website. Yes, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
So,
Do you want to see it?
no, I'm actually this one, candlelight. Yeah. So this is a picture from a South Korea, what we call candlelight revolution. That was from 2016 to 2018. This was actually, it lasted more than a year. And let's see, because I'm just gonna give you some of the historical details. Basically, what happened was, the South Korea is deep in it's living out essentially really destructive vagaries of neoliberal capitalism. So that comes with a lot of deregulations, right? A lot of deregulations. Because what? The name of the game is more profit. So what happened was in 2014, there's this ferry called Sewol in South Korea that sank because it was unsafe, and yet it was allowed to be put in operation. So it killed 476 people, and out of those people, 325 were high school students on school trip. So that propelled what we call candlelight revolution. So as a result, the sitting president, the defender of an architect of South Korean neoliberalism, was put on trial, and she was impeached, into impeachment, and she was sent to the prison. Yeah. So these are the people. These are people lighting candlelight. They showed up every single night for, let's see, how long? From 2016 to 2017. Every night, right? So that cannot be, this kind of political energy or this kind of political desire for justice cannot be separated from its own cinematic institution. So again, from theater to the street. Yeah. So because through cinematic experience, they galvanize their sense of the real, and then they can translate it into political act from the, just like during the Russian Revolution, from the theater to the street, Yes. So
What was the result of that, and all the protesting?
yeah, as a result of the protesting, the sitting president was sent to the prison. Yeah, that was the result. So it essentially threw away the oppressive neoliberal government.
If you've never seen a protest in Seoul, South Korea, it is stirring. Remember, we were there one year.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were protesting, but it was striking. 5,000 people show up, stand utterly silently, all looking in the same direction. I mean, it's stirring.
Yes.
And then when they clear off, there's not a gum wrapper on the ground. They leave it in that. It's stunning.
Yeah, that is true.
It's really
Yeah.
Is Korean cinema playing to the masses?
Yes.
And I ask the following question
Yes.
because some film critic in Korea, I don't know who he was, I didn't write it down, bemoaned the fact that the Korean films that do well have got a lot of sex and a lot of violence. And we've watched a couple that we had to shut off because of the violence.
Okay.
So, is any Korean cinema going to show up that's not playing to the masses that will do well? Is that a possibility?
One of the ones that we saw, we loved, but did have a lot of violence, and it was Always.
Always. Oh, I wonder what that is in Korean. Because I'm not familiar with that title.
It's a story.
Of a boxer who goes to Taiwan where it's
Oh, I see.
They hide
Yeah.
this battle
Yeah,
between
yeah, yeah,
him
yeah, yeah.
and a big fighter
Yeah, yeah.
to make a lot of money,
Yes.
and the fight
Okay.
scenes were brutal.
Okay, okay.
And he did it because, his girlfriend was, the woman he was in love with was blind.
Oh, I
And
see.
he wanted to raise enough money
Okay.
for surgery for her.
Okay, that is, I'm very familiar with the convoluted romantic, the romance. Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, you know what? I actually haven't seen this one, but I can see that this features one of the biggest stars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Coach
Thank
from
you,
Oh
yeah.
My Venus.
Oh, what?
Coach is what we call it, Joe.
Yes.
So, anyway, he was the coach of
Oh,
Shin Mina in Oh My
Shimina.
Venus.
Wow, you even know the
See,
name.
now we're switching to,
Oh, you guys need to good. Okay.
to,
Yes,
the television
yes,
series.
yes,
One more quick question.
yes.
Do the directors of cinema
Mhm.
look down on the directors of these 16 episode shows that are so popular?
Korean dramas.
Korean, okay, you know what? Those are all good questions. Let's start with the first one. It is very worrisome. It is true because just like American version of blockbusters, right? Blockbuster formula. We call that high concept films, not because they have some high uplifting ideas behind it, but rather entire movie could be summarized in one sentence, right? So Batman meets Joker, and then Batman saves the world, right? Just like that. So Korea has also Korean blockbuster formula. So it's spectacle driven, just like you guys were saying, a lot of violent spectacles, even sexual and violent spectacles. So there is that, and yet you can still locate that skull here and there. Yeah, just like so we really cannot condemn. I mean, for example, even American blockbusters. For example, even Batman, right? Even Batman, we are able to actually see where American cultural anxiety shows up, emerges, right? For example, about white masculinity. Yeah. So, for instance, right, all these action heroes, that is a response to, like people like Bruce Willis or people like that. That's a response to cultural anxiety regarding what does it mean to be a white heterosexual masculine man and middle class or working class, etc. Right? So then what we do is not to celebrate it, but rather, okay, where that anxiety is and how does the anxiety find its expression visually, right? That's how we see the movie critically, yeah? Rather than just wholesale condemning it, yeah? Because what? That's how we read ourselves. That's how you read who Americans are. That's how you read what America is, right? Through that, reading those images, the way that those images are put together. So yes, South Korean blockbuster formula is falling in the same trap, yeah? So that is worrisome, and because really profit-driven studio system is at the center of the film production. So, however, I mean, for example, even Bong Joon-ho himself, he's able to do what he's able to do because he has proven himself in the box office. He's one of the most popular filmmakers. Now, that's another thing. In South Korea, some of the most challenging films about historical trauma would be really popular in box office, like a top 10 box office. That would go with, right? It's that. So really fluid, like a movement between seemingly spectacle-driven blockbuster formula, and also there is this kernel of trauma. That skull that's still sitting right there. There's some, the kernel of like that sit right on your throat and you just cannot swallow or spit out or digest. It's there. So still in my assessment, it's still there. I mean, of course, it could become harder and harder to find because the films also have means to hide the traumatic kernel, it has that means to do that. For example, let's see, Incredible Hulk, right? But think about it. One of the genre films, right? Genre films express how traumatic it is to exist as a human being because they're just unconscious that I cannot control, right? And then so that's actually what's driving horror films, right? Something that I cannot control in me. I'm a werewolf. There's something that I cannot control is in me, and it just erupts without my being able to manage it, and it destroys the world, right? How about Hulk? Yes, he's a monster. He erupts. He shows up without my control, but look at what he's doing. He saves the world, right? Now that in such a way, films cinema has its own ways of hiding that kernel, hiding that skull, right? So in a way, South Korean films are at a juncture, right? So I think that there's a filmmakers need to answer to the call of ethical choices. What do you do, right? What if you understand the cinematic medium's ability that move people from theater to the street? Then what do you do, right? Again, this is a fight with a neoliberal capitalism, right? That all of us are fighting. So we have to wait and see, really, where it's going to go. Would it be able to continue what people like Park Chan-wook or Bong Joon-ho is doing? Let me tell you, the Park Chan-wook Old Boy, Old Boy is actually that was just re-released theatrically. So they were showing it in theater in Burlington, actually. Old Boy is it's a cult classic that used to be part of a Asia Extreme. There's this I think UK company that was releasing this series called Asia Extreme. Basically Japanese horror movies, Hong Kong horror movies, and there's something, whatever that the audience will feel that, okay, the violence is too excessive, that kind of movies, right? So Old Boy was part of that. That violence in that movie is really, really physical and visceral. However, that movie is extremely political film. It's an extremely vigorous critique of patriarchy. It is, right? So that movie, actually, I heard the Koreans that I know. I went to that movie to see with my grandfather. Yeah, so all my family went to see it, and that movie involves like incest and destruction of patriarchy. This is an awful movie. I mean, in the sense, if we just think about how terrifying the violence is, my entire family went to see it, and that was really successful box office. So again, it's a negotiation. It's a really, really, really difficult negotiation. But some of the Korean filmmakers have been doing it. Bong Joon-ho has been doing it. Park Chan-wook has been doing it. There are several others that, actually, I have to say, most important filmmakers, right, in South Korean filmmakers, they are all doing it. They're still doing it. While rapping films with blockbuster-driven spectacles, they still smuggle in that skull, the kernel. They're doing it. So that's something that we need to keep on watching out for. And about the TV, K-drama, probably. You know what? I have to say there are 2 K-dramas that I finished watching: Squid Game and My Liberation Notes. That's it. Because I don't have time. However, so actually my American friends would ask me, "Hey, this is a new release." So now Korean drama, TV dramas, historically, and it has been far more conservative compared to the cinema.
Yeah.
Extremely conservative. So this is really about, just like the American soap operas. This is basically they are family melodramas. They're really about reassuring all of us, yes, family system is intact.
So almost the opposite.
Yeah, almost opposite to the film. It has been that way. However, I think some of the Netflix released the K-dramas, they trying to go beyond that. I think it's probably because their alibi is that, hey, we are selling it to the global audience. We gotta come up with some new language. We gotta come up with a new form. We gotta come up with a new way of telling stories. I think that's how it's working. Squid Game, for example. Have you guys seen Squid Game? Yeah. You don't like it.
Again, violence. There was,
You know what?
the first 2 episodes
Speaking
turned
of
us off.
okay, speaking of violence, I mean the Hollywood action movies.
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood action movies are quite violent. However, they stop at some point. They don't go all the way. In other words, the way in which they destroy white male body, there's always a limit. But Koreans don't have the limit. They go as far as they can go. But I think that comes with the political position about the body. Really. For example, what is the human body in the neoliberal capitalism? It's a capital. It's a capital. You better present yourself as a human capital, right? The human capital is one of the most scariest terms that human capital. So the body is the embodiment of your value at the marketplace. Your body is the embodiment. Your body is supposed to express your value as a commodity, right? That you sell. I mean, Karl Marx says the only freedom that people have in capitalist society, unless you are the people who own the mode of production of capital, the only freedom you have is the freedom to sell your labor. Of course, it's not a freedom. So you can see the how. So that's the body. So in history of Korean trauma, the body is used as a weapon, almost like as an object through which its resistance to colonialism, its resistance to military dictatorship, and its resistance to capitalism, right? That is Korean cinema. The cinematic in Korean cinematic imagination, they are redefining the body. The body is no longer a human capital, right? We are gonna express resistance to that through the destruction of the body as we know. That's it, right? For example, in Old Boy, we see the patriarch cutting his own tongue. For example, sorry about the giving away, the most important detail of the movie. Spoiler alert! I should have given you. But so that is essentially reimagining the body that represents patriarchy, right? So come on, you lost your tongue, you lose the ability to speak. The speech is the foundation of the law. You lost it, right? So that in this case, destruction of the body is an expression of resistance. That's why. And in the meantime, in Hollywood action films, all this destruction of bodies it's such that we can show that they are actually indestructible. Yeah, you cannot destroy the human capital. But South Korean films say, yes, let's destroy the body as we know. That's what it is. Yes.
It occurs to me that character in Old Boy, right?
Yes.
He loses his tongue but gains the ability to normalize the crossing of a key kind of, social and ethical boundary.
Yes.
Like incest.
Incest. Right? Yes. Again, spoiler alert, but yes, that is the meaning of that destruction of the body. So he is able to transgress the most foundational law in patriarchal society.
And still cinematically be a sympathetic.
Yeah. Oedipal law, based on the Oedipal prohibition. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, you talked about the water coming down.
Yes.
All right, and that, what we hear about South Korea, the streets are clean and spotless.
Yes.
Is the water going back up? And are they trying to strive for that? And are they going to accept that?
Oh,
Or is it just going to be the capitalistic money that they're after?
that's an excellent question. I think neoliberalism is revealing more and more the impossible condition for existence. Right? When you say South Korea is not an exception. So let me just clarify what you're asking. Water going up. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you talk about the clean in the.
Yes,
the
yes.
buildings look
Extremely clear, yes,
gorgeous, Yes,
yes.
and do they want to go that way? Are they accepting that?
Oh,
Or
I
are
see,
they going to
I
be
see. Excellent.
down there?
Excellent question, excellent question. So, yes, the South Korean streets are spotless, and their subways are spotless. You can actually eat off of the floor. It's like, and yeah, and the mass demonstration, not a single piece of trash. Yes, there is that. And yet, now that is South Korean reality. But what I say, the way really things are, right? Like my students looking at the smudge of fingerprints, right? That is far more complicated. So that going down to the switch, that is important part of human condition in South Korea. That the society as a whole has not been able to confront and also address. Yes. So right now, for example, even after this revolution, the most recent presidential election, the actually neoliberal, the ultra-conservative regime has won because they spoke to discontent of Korean man whose condition of existence draws from the patriarchal authority. So just like the white people in this country say immigrants are taking all away, Korean men say women are taking it all away. Yeah, so women are hyper politicized. I mean, even my friends who teach at South Korean universities told me really politicized, really progressive, right? And the really like a revolution-minded people are women students. So they have given up dating because the large swath of young men, they were actually the group of people who voted for this ultra-conservative regime. Yeah.
I know
So-
our pastor at the Methodist Church in Middlebury, in East Middlebury, is from South Korea.
Oh, he is.
And her husband is also. And she's not happy with the government as it is right now.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah. Good.
yes.
But however, the South Korean neoliberal has been able to deliver to middle and upper middle class. So this income gap is enormous. So liberal middle class people are not willing to let it go and let go of their material benefit, the basis, right? That gives and gives. Yeah. So that is the problem. Yeah. And even in Parasite, that's what these proletariats wanted. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the part where we consume, where we accumulate. That seduction is just so powerful. Yeah. So we just cannot just simply assume that class of people who really leave the systematic oppression will be so politicized, it will be so easy to organize them. It's not the case because they are actually making psychical and emotional investment in the system where they sin. It's promising to them, yes, you can have it too. Yes, you can have it. Yeah.
I'm still kind of, my wheels are turning about that great point you made. And one of the differences that strikes me is gravity is a reality. Water goes downhill. If you want the clean water back up at the top of the hill, it has to be willfully pumped.
Yes.
And maybe part of the message is, right, capitalism itself has a gravitational direction,
Yes.
right? And that's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
the restoration of some sort of equality, equanimity, justice
Yes.
requires similar to that water, willful. I never really thought about that.
That's
a
actually a
fascinating
brilliant
point.
question. Yes. Thank you for your response. That is also, that's also the great response. So,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Oh, that's it? Okay. Out of time? All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Oh, well, thank you. Well, I was going to show you this.